Shabbat Shalom, everyone. The Shabbos is a very special Shabbos, Parshat Balak. The Shabbos is the Torah portion in which Balak tries to curse the Jewish people. He does that by hiring the most famous prophet, the non-Jewish prophet, by a name of Bilam. Some would say that the non-Jewish prophet of Bilam had as great of prophecy on the parallel side as Moses himself. And this is the famous story of the talking donkey that Shrek gets their character from. While Bilam is riding on the donkey stops and it sees in front of it an angel swerving a sword, and it talks back to Bilam. And this is it's a very interesting parsha, in which every time Bilam goes from place to place, from top of the mountain to the next top of the mountain, he tries to curse the Jewish people, but instead, every single time he gives a blessing. Today we read it in the Torah portion, one of the most famous blessings which he gives, and that is one that we read every single day in the Siddur. He looks out and sees that the Jewish people's tents are not facing each other, and their windows aren't facing each other, and therefore they're not looking into each other's neighbor. And he gives a blessing. How great are the tents of and the dwelling places of Israel, in which we institute that into our daily prayers. One of the first things that we say in the morning, even before we put our tefillin on, is Ma Tovu Lecha Yaakov Mishkan Asecha Yisrael. But there's there's another blessing in this week's Torah portion, and it's a blessing which is so apropos and critical for today's day and age, and during this current time and the war in Israel. Especially this morning, we had a terrible attack in Tel Aviv, and the Houthis got through their UAV, and sadly 1 was killed and 10 were injured. And that is, he says, Am levado yishkon. It's a nation that dwells alone. And the question is, how is that a blessing? It's a nation that dwells alone should be, in essence, a curse. It was a very interesting yechidus, a private audience between Rabin on the occasion of former Prime Minister Rabin. At the time was the envoy to the UN, and he was asked by President Weizmann to go and see the Rebbe in honor of the Rebbe's 70th birthday. And former Prime Minister Rabin was not known to be a religious individual, and the situation itself wasn't a very comfortable situation. Nevertheless, he went on behalf of the president to share his wishes together with, in honor of the Rebbe's 70th birthday. It was right before or right after the Yechidus of RFK, and which came, at 2:00 in the morning, and the Rebbe sits down with Rabin and starts to discuss not questions about Judaism or the questions about Hasidism, but the questions about strategy. At that time, we were talking strategy of the Bar-Lev line, the strategy of the wars, and explaining different ideas. And Prime Minister Rabin was fascinated by the Rebbe's knowledge of someone that seemed like he was sitting in an office in Brooklyn and had all of the deep state understanding of the wars in Israel. And then the Rebbe turns around to him and asks him about this pasuk. It was right around this time. And he asked the question. It was a couple of months before, on the Rebbe's 70th birthday, before this week's Torah portion. And it says, Am levadav yishkon, a nation that dwells alone. Do you see that as a blessing, or do you see that as a curse? And Prime Minister Rabin goes on to explain how he sees it as a curse. And the Rebbe says, no, you have to see it as a blessing. When we are a nation that dwells alone, it is not because we are singled out. It is not because we are wrong, we're on the wrong side of history. It's because everyone else is on the wrong side of history. Just because the world stands and says Israel is committing genocide or Israel is doing the wrong thing, doesn't mean that Israel is doing the wrong thing. When we see how backwards and upside down this world truly is. And the Rebbe goes on to explain them how when we see ourselves and protrude ourselves that we are a nation that dwells alone, we don't have to worry about appeasing the nations and appeasing the rest of the world or doing what the rest of the world wants. And that's when the world will respect us, even within a space in the Middle East where we have to fight every single one of our enemies that are surrounding us. And if you watch on YouTube when Prime Minister Rabin shakes Yasser Arafat's hand at the time of the Oslo Accords, and he says these words, "We are no longer a nation that dwells alone." and it's actually how wrong he was at that time when he signed the Oslo Accords and with the arch terrorist of Yasser Arafat. But it's an idea that we have to dwell with today. Many of us are struggling. How is it that every single day the whole world is against Israel? And maybe Israel is wrong. We have to realize this blessing that Hashem gave us. Am levado yishkon. We are a nation that dwells alone. Hashem gave us the power to stand alone, to stand strong, to be on the other side of history, to be on the right side of history. Even when the whole world is against us, Am levado yishkon. We are a nation that dwells alone. We are a nation that stands strong and proud of who we are. And when we live in that way, the whole world will respect us, and the whole world will not question our motives and the reasons for what we have to do. Especially as today, today was a very unique attack. And there was actually nothing unique about today's attack, other than it actually hit. We've knocked down thousands of UAVs from Hezbollah, from Iran, but this one actually hit. And God forbid if all the rest of them would have hit, and everyone in the world will say Israel has the right to exist. But as long as we are protecting ourselves and we're not getting hit, all of a sudden when we're going on the offensive, all of a sudden the world says Israel is committing genocide. Because remember, we are a nation that stands alone. Be proud of who we are. Be proud of our country. Be proud of our soldiers and what they do. And God willing, the rest of the world will very soon see the true light, the time in which we have a revelation, the coming of Mashiach very soon in our days. Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We'll see you tonight at 7:30 p.m.